Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a reel that's been beached. It's a reel that got trapped in the sand. I understand that the fellow was out surf casting, got hit by a wave, the pole got knocked down, and the water rushed in with all of the sand. And this one is a Daiwa D Wave, so I guess that's appropriate that it got hit by a wave. You can just see it's sticky, it's got a real big noise, and the bail only partially fires. So my guess is there's a lot of sand in there. And hopefully we'll be able to do a couple of things here, because there's another fellow that had asked about an anti-reverse spring, and we're going to see if this has the same setup as that. So this is the D Wave 4000 3-ball bearing reel. As I mentioned, it's sanded, and the first thing we're going to do is just see if it's even worth repairing. Now, this fellow that gave me the reel, he operates a stall at a flea market. He buys, sells, and trades reels, and so he got this one pretty much for nothing. I do work with him on it, so when he does need repairs, I do try to repair it for him and make it worth his while trading or something. So it may not be worth it for the average person to go ahead and do that, but this is kind of a relationship-based repair here more than it is anything else. All right, so I took the spool off. That's not making a noise, and it's relatively clean there. And you can just keep testing, and you can still feel that there's quite a noise going on here. So I'm going to remove the rotor. That's the next step up here. Then I guess whatever sequence you wanted to do this in, you could kind of work on the bail or work on the rotor or work on both. That's your choosing on that. There's no set pattern that you must work on one or the other. There is a tie down here on the rotor nut. That's to keep it from slipping and getting the rotor to go loose. There's a very small screw, so I used my micro screwdriver on that. You can see the screw inside here, and that goes into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container for a parts tray. In the past, I've used milk jugs and other things. It's really a matter of organization and what you're comfortable with. If you like a different system, well, certainly don't switch over for the sake of switching over because I'm doing it, but just find one that you're comfortable with. So I'm trying to find the right wrench now for the rotor nut. This is kind of an odd one. So when you can't find wrenches that fit, go to your alternate, which is go to a deep socket and see if you can't work it out with a deep socket. And that's what I was able to do. This comes off in the traditional sense, and that traditional sense is a counterclockwise turn. And we'll take the rotor off. And this setup is similar to what the fella had, so maybe we'll be able to show the sequence here. I'm not quite certain, but I'm thinking that if I turn this that way and his pushes in. So this has got an interesting lock feature to it. So let's go explain that as we go ahead and try and take this off. So again, I'm going to listen to the reel. We have a bad ball bearing in here is the cause of this. I don't know if we're going to be able to go any further with that. I may have to find a different bearing for that. I am going to take this assembly off though to show where that spring goes for the anti-reverse. As I mentioned, this is kind of a two-flavor approach here. We'll go down underneath. We're going to check that out. We'll see if we can play around with the bail. But the more significant one here is a failed ball bearing. You can see that, and you'll see it better as I take the collar off of this. But what happened was that saltwater intrusion got into this bearing and rusted it. So this is not a sealed bearing by any stretch of the imagination. And what it has is it's just kind of rusted away. And I need to get the sleeve off of this cap here. There's two studs on it. I'm going to use a razor knife as a shim or as a lever to get that off. There we go. And we should be able to push that bearing out. And yeah, I don't have anything like that in my bearing case. If you want to test the bearing, to see if it is the bearing, this is a tip sent in by a viewer. Just use a little wedge there to hold the inside. Spin it. I kind of hold it this way. And yeah, that bearing is shot. So let's just go ahead. This is a different type of an anti-reverse. It's not an instant anti-reverse. It is it's a complete assembly. We're going to take that off. And you can just see how the rust has just permeated the assembly. This collar should come off. That's the little shield behind it for the bearing. We're going to do our best to just kind of clean this up. But the answer to what is the problem is that everything is just kind of rusted up here. And that's a matter of parts. A D-Wave reel is just not that expensive. And when you get a situation like this, the issues that arrive from the materials themselves is often why these reels break down. And if you could find the repair parts, well, chances are the parts plus the cost to install them, and that just is way too much for the value of the reel. All right, this seems to be a sealed unit here. And I don't normally recommend doing anything with a anti-reverse clutch, but this has got rust in it. So I'm going to use a little bit of penetrating oil. We're just going to let that leak out. You really don't want to get too much oil or grease into an anti-reverse clutch. All right, we'll just continue with that. Let's answer the question from the fellow who has the anti-reverse dog that isn't working. We'll use this as the example. I'm going to take the screw out of the anti-reverse dog to show how the spring gets set. So you remove the top screw for the dog. That comes straight up. And now you'll see you have a spring with a long tag that goes into a cavity, wraps around the spool, and comes back and wraps on the dog. So if we pull this whole assembly out, this is usually what you're confronted with. This is your spring. And again, you have a spring that kind of makes a U shape, and then you have a long tagged arm. The U shape is going to go across the arm on the back side of the anti-reverse dog, something like that. To reset the spring, then put the spring on the post, get the tag arm in the cavity, and position that piece for the U as far or as close as you can. Next up, slip the dog under and into that U clip, and then before you swing it all the way around, because you've got to clear that anti-reverse arm on the other side, just hold it up a little bit until you're on the other side of that dog, then push down, and that sets it. So we'll kind of know the reel needs a bearing, and I'm not quite sure where we're going to be able to get one of them. But we've been able to use this to give another reel a second chance by showing you how that anti-reverse spring gets installed. And then we're going to take the anti-reverse override, that's the position we're in right now. We'll take that off. And now what you'll see is it's going to flip in and out with that spring applying the pressure back. So what are the key takeaways here? Well, the first is if you get a reel that gets dunked or sanded, you need to address the situation immediately. You need to flush with fresh water, and if you have the opportunity, take the reel apart and make sure that all the pieces and parts are cleaned and get rid of it. One of my best suggestions if that happens is take that reel, fill up a big pail of water so that you can completely submerge the reel in fresh water, and let the water dissolve the microsalts and sands that accumulate in there. And regardless of whether it was just underwater for 10 seconds or a minute or been under there a while, it's going to have a detrimental effect on pieces in the reel, like that steel bearing which rusted and ultimately was the demise of this reel. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It did serve a second chance purpose. We were able to show how to reset the spring on an anti-reverse dog as a result. So all is not lost in the work. So to everybody, I hope we all say thanks to first responders and essential personnel during the pandemic. They are really working hard, especially with this breakout of Omicron. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.